This conference will now be recorded.
All right. So good morning, folks. I'm glad that you're all here today, and we are going to be looking at chapter 24 and lecturing on that. So, my introduction prior to recording the class, we talked about the tree of life. And so here we're seeing that there is a um, common ancestry that is demonstrated by this tree of life. And we're going to see how we have these three different domains. And we'll talk about these in a little bit more detail. But let's go back. Let's go now to the PowerPoint, and we'll proceed from there. And then we'll come back to this image. Okay. All right. So it's chapter 24. Systematics and phylogenetics, revealing the tree of life. And so that's what I just gave you a little bit of an insight to. We'll be looking at some more information and such. So look at this. This is quite interesting. And I'm going to provide for you all, there's a little bit of another little assignment. This is just very brief. The videos are short, but I think you'll find it fascinating. So this will also be due next Wednesday. Okay. So this will be due. So this is due. I'll put this also in coursework. And this will be part of your lab assignment, okay? Just to know that, all right? So this will be added to, and I'm going to create. Actually, I should put it part of Lab 30. So when I create coursework, this will be just cut and pasted onto Lab 30 as far as what you'll need to do. So folks know that we have a 3-hour lab. This will not be 3 hours worth of work that you'll do, but I try to do all that I can to make sure that it's interesting for you all, that when you're doing the lab work, that you'll find it not boring at all. So anyhow, getting back to this. So why does it matter that we study taxonomy and this how we organize the different types of creatures throughout the world? So Plasmodium, parasite, causes malaria. You all might have heard of malaria. You might have maybe even come from a country that malaria is a very real thing, and it's a very dangerous illness, and you can die from it. Okay. Transmitted by a species of this mosquito, Anopheles mosquitoes. So know that mosquitoes can be the vector for many different types of illnesses. So when you are out and about, and it's during the spring, summertime, whatever it may be, and you're outdoors and such, either use some type of protective spray. If you want to just use something that's more natural, they have natural stuff, or they have DEET containing, whatever it may be. Or if you wear long sleeves, do what you can to protect yourself from getting bit by mosquitoes. I can remember as a boy, it was funny to have a mosquito land on you and then like flex your muscle so that it fill up with. That's terrible, right? But stupid stuff. But you shouldn't allow mosquitoes to bite you if you can, right? Seriously, it should be a matter of protect yourself, please, because again, other types of illnesses are transmitted as a result of mosquitoes. You'll see here, though, that the adults of the species are almost indistinguishable as far as male and female. Okay, it's the female that was going to be the one that will actually be the one to fight and remove the blood from us. Researchers eventually determined that and they're the ones that will transmit this parasite. 3 of only 6 species of the mosquitoes can actually do this, right? Systematics, branch of biology that studies the diversity of life and its evolutionary relationship. So we'll see here how, so it's not just a matter of just, oh, on paper here, this looks good. It deals with real world issues like studies of parasites and microorganisms and such, and the study of DNA and how closely we are related to different types of organisms. And we're going to see this in the tree of life. Quite fascinating. But really, thinking of the origin of and the diversity that's present regarding their relationships with evolutionary changes that occur, this is what the chapter is about and what it helps you to just have a little bit of an understanding and know that, folks. I mean, there are scientists that their focus is just in specific aspects of this type of research, right? So who knows if research is something that you may not start off with doing, but may go into doing, right? I find it fascinating to read journal articles and see focus. Now, can some studies be like, what, really, you're going to study that? But hey, we're all very different, and we all have our different focuses of interest. And so, the respect should be there for someone who has time and effort and money into doing some type of research regarding whatever it may be as far as in the biological world. I just find it fascinating. I think it's quite interesting. So whenever I have highlighted terms and such, you should know these terms because they'll come back for you regarding testing and such. And our testing will be online, and it will be also, it'll be multiple choice primarily, okay? The majority of the questions will be multiple choice, maybe some true and false, but primarily that. You'd be like, yeah, and I have to even consider this because I've played around with it a bit, maybe like one essay type question at the most, right? So, but primarily it's going to be multiple choice and true and false, so it might be a couple thrown in here and there, okay? Very good, as far as testing is concerned. You'll see here's the type of mosquito, right? And we're looking at really the diversity amongst these different types of mosquito and the eggs that they lay, and how only certain types are the ones that will actually, you'll see here as far as be the ones, 3 out of them, that will be the ones that will carry, that can carry the malarial parasite and such. This is quite interesting. I put it here just to focus on and see how an infected mosquito will bite, send in, not only will it remove the blood from the human, but it's also going to then transmit these sporozoites into the blood, which will in turn go to the liver in particular, and then they'll actually infect hepatocytes, which will in turn then lead to them infecting the erythrocytes, the red blood cells, which will in turn then create a cycle throughout the body, and so the patient can get quite sick. You'll see here then another mosquito will come by, remove the blood, and say this mosquito does not have, right, the parasite whatsoever. It will then get the parasite from someone who is infected, bites the infected person, and then the cycle begins all over, and it's just not a good thing. So that's why I want you to do this. I think you'll find it really quite interesting, actually. And I'm going to tell you, if it's more than 8 minutes total for both videos, like 4 minutes or so for each, but I do believe that you'll find that quite interesting. So I'll post this with Lab 30, so this will be a part of Lab 30, okay, as far as the assignments are concerned. Good. So getting into the chapter here, right? So taxonomy, identifying, naming, and classifying new species, and you'll see that we're going to go from very broad to more specific as we get to the individual branches, so to speak, of the tree of life. You'll see here, and many of you have probably heard of this name before, Carolus Linnaeus, right? Invented the system of binomial nomenclature. You might, I'm sure you've probably heard that term before. We do recognize, so here we have I'm just going to go down here first. So this is a type of bacterium, coli. You've heard that on the news. If you've never even taken any kind of course whatsoever, but you listen to the news and say, hey, there's an E. coli outbreak. Well, Escherichia coli, right? And so this is named after a scientist, the Venus portion, that name, an eponym, we would call it. You'll see here that this is a type of bacterium, and you'll see here also that it's italicized, or we can have it underlined, right? So here, as far as for the bear is concerned, Ursus arctos, okay, and we're going to look a little bit more into that in a few minutes here. You'll see as far as you can either underline the term, or you can have it italicized. And first, the genus portion of the name, so binomial, there's 2 parts to the name. The first part of the name would be capitalized. The second part is not capitalized. We have the genus and the specific epithet, the species name right there. And what you'll do is, you can, whenever you have any type of paper where you're writing about a specific organism that you've actually had using the binomial nomenclature, you can start off with, so if I'm writing about a paper about E. coli, Well, I would put Escherichia coli first. In the first mention of the bacterium, I would write it out like that. Then subsequent reference to E. coli, I can just put the abbreviation E period coli. Understood? So this is how we are able to do the nomenclature. And when we're quoting and using these names within any type of papers that we're producing, this is how you would use this nomenclature. Just something interesting for you here, just give you a little bit of additional information. You do not have to, this is not an area of study, this is just area of increased information for you all, because I just think it's quite interesting. Because when we're thinking of E. coli, don't just think that all of E. coli, right, is pathogenic. Okay? Know that really we have E. coli present within our digestive tract, right, within our large intestine, okay, within the colon, and that really our healthy microbiome, which would be the environment in our intestines, in our colon in particular, our large intestines, that contains these microorganisms, and E. coli, one of the microbiome, one of the different microbes, very healthy for us, needed. Okay, in particular, vitamin K involved in being synthesized and produced as a result of E. coli being present within our colon, and this is important for our ability to for blood clotting and such, and thrombocytic activity and such. Thrombocyte platelet activity. Okay, in order to clot blood, very important. So E. coli, very important and healthy. And so these E. coli will live a symbiotic relationship, a mutualistic relationship where they help us, we provide them with nutrients, they provide us with the ability to create this healthy environment within our colon and production of vitamin K. And also the fact that they are healthy product present within us, that because they're present, because they're colonized there, in addition to other healthy microbes, they'll prevent pathogenic microbes from also taking residence there. In other words, say there are 10 houses on a block, right? And the 10 houses are occupied by people who are citizens who are not criminals whatsoever. But say one family leaves, and they leave their home abandoned. Out of the 10, there's one that's abandoned. What can happen? Can people who, I'm just give an example. Say a criminal, some criminals come and they move to that residence, and they create problems within the neighborhood, within those 10 homes. Could that be an issue, right? So like, know that the E. coli are present within the colon. They prevent the pathogenic bacteria from living in our colon, because they're taking up the space that pathogenic disease-causing microbes could possibly be. Coli, you'll think in terms of, in particular, like vegetables, like lettuce. In particular, we've been talking about romaine lettuce, right? And so know that microbiologists, many of them, do not go to, now I know right now it's not an issue, but buffets, and in particular cold buffets, because they will not eat like a salad bar, because a salad bar you can clean, you can use a weak acid, right? There are certain substances you can spray, and even just using a vinegar type wash on your vegetables and just cleaning them up, cleaning them real good. That's really important to do, but still, you can't heat up the material that's on the cold salad bar, right? So as such, you're not, the ability to kill microbes is not all that present. And so many microbiologists will not eat at a cold buffet, salad bars whatsoever, because of that issue. And so know that, so like the lettuce issue, you're washing it off and you're just trying to do the best you can, but still there can be bacteria present. And know that, yes, no matter what goes on around you, there's bacteria on your computer, there's bacteria on your hands right now, right? I mean, breathing it, they're all around us, but really, thankfully, not most of the bacteria, primarily the majority of the bacteria that we live around and in, not pathogenic, not disease causing. So that was kind of a lot for E. coli, sorry, but I just find it fascinating, and really when I'm teaching also, I want to make sure that you're seeing that, try to make it more real world and not just something that's just like okay in paper and we're just learning terms, but trying to make it a little bit more real to you all. Also, regarding malaria, you'll see here um, part of the world where we have a high concentration of incidents, and this is 2018, right? So green, we're seeing none at all. We're less than 0.1% here, and the majority of the world in white. Okay, so, but you'll see here, it's unfortunately, right, and sadly for these folks, so there are pharmaceutical companies that do donate and provide medications for areas of the world that have these issues. Wow, it's pretty intense. It's pretty bad, and and also too, again, like I said, there are other types of illnesses that use mosquitoes as vectors that really, so they may not be here, but they can be here, but they can also be in other areas of the world, right? That can make people really sick from any type of like blindness issues, like river blindness, to lymphatic filariasis, which is tiny little parasites that get stuck in the lymphatic system that can cause what's called like elephantiasis, aka also known as where their lower extremities, the skin gets thick like an elephant, and it also there's a lot of edema, swelling in the lower extremities. Sad stuff that many people in our world live with. It's just quite something. So coming back to our taxonomic hierarchy. So know that you'll see on the tree of life that again too we'll go from very broad and then it'll branch out into more specific regarding different types of species and such, and their similarities and common types of characteristics or traits that we can see. So Linnaeus was around about approximate 100 years prior to Charles Darwin. So keep that in mind also, okay? So classification system, right? This hierarchy includes a nested series or groups of, you've heard of this, I'm sure. Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, and subspecies, okay? So here, here, let me look at here for a moment. Yeah, so I gave you this, I'm giving you this. I'm gonna post this also, just so that you have it in a Word document also with these links and such, just an additional information. But I've given you here as far as this dear King Philip came over for good soup. Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. You know, if it helps, great. I hope so, you know. And let's just yeah, let me add this here. I never used a mnemonic for it. I just memorized it, just kept on reviewing it over and over and over. Um, and so know that. All right, let me get some information here. I'd like to. Right. So when we're going to look at an image, I'll come back to this. But this I'll provide for you also in documents and resources. Okay. So again, I try to do all that I can to give you as much information and documentation as possible, that to make it easier for you to understand and to learn. Okay. You'll see here organisms included in the so compose a taxon, so a group. It's just a group. These are groups, and so as we start, so we have more of a and again too, there's criteria for each of the groups, and I'm going to go over that regarding in a few minutes here when we look at the tree. You'll see here, as far as we start off with the domain, which is very broad, and we get to the species and the subspecies, which is very narrow as far as the criteria to be represented by that specific type of group. Okay. So this I posted for you just to help you a little bit regarding Linnaeus also. So classification, by grouping living things into defined hierarchies, right? Hierarchies, giving them individual names, we create order. So really, we take a situation where we try to create an ordered classification system in order to know what's going on and have a better understanding, a deeper understanding of the organisms and microorganisms that we share this planet Earth with. Okay. Here's an interesting one that I wanted to show you. So Linnaeus' was most famous scientific name is probably the name he gave humans, Homo sapiens, right? Homo, genus, right? Remember genus and the specific epithet, aka the species name. For the modern humans and closely related species like Homo neanderthalensis, right? The Neanderthals, you've heard of that. Linnaeus did two things that changed our understanding of humans, which is pretty cool. Right? You'll see here, as far as we're giving you the domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. And so here we're looking at the black bear, okay? Ursus americanus. So now let me go to, I'm going to show you that, but I want to, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to step away from here for a moment and coming back here. And I'm going to come back here in just a moment here, but I want to show you, I've got a bunch of photos and such that I just want to share with you. Now, right here. Okay, very good. So here we have, this is cool. Now we're going to step away for a moment because I want to give you a little bit more of an understanding regarding the domains, the kingdoms, and so on. Okay, moving on as far as the phylum and such. So look here, as far as that, we have this Ursinae, right? So Ursinae would be then where we would be looking at more of the Ursinae would be like, so we're looking at Ursus and such. So we're looking at the polar bear, the brown bear, right? The grizzly bear, the black bear. Okay. This looks like the like almost like similar to what a panda looks like. You'll see how there are differences between these different types of bears. Okay. So just see that we can have similarities, right? And yet there still can be coming down to more of the species and subspecies as far as the different types of bear in particular that we're looking at here. Now, let's take a look at, here we go. Let's come here first. And here, I just want you to see, this is just one representation of the tree of life and showing you that there is an origin that would be here. Okay, now you'll see in another tree of life, it'll show you protists. Okay, so single-celled organism, and upon which with this theory, as far as evolutionary theory is concerned, right, that we have then a branching out. So as the tree trunk is one, then there are then branches that will take place, and then multiple branches that will take place and have more of a specificity to the different types of species that we'll see here. Okay, so whether we're looking at archaea, eukarya, or bacteria. Now, know that like eukarya, we're thinking of organisms that have, okay, organisms that can have, and know that it's not just a matter of just single cell, but multi-celled, single and multi-celled organism, because there can be single cell and multi-cell present within the eukarya, because these type of organisms have, their cells have membrane-bound organelles. So as we're looking at this, as I'm teaching and as you're sitting there in front of your screen and listening, you should be writing down information, okay? So not only, I don't always provide every little bit of information for you because I've talked about the slides and what's going on, and I'm giving you additional information. So know that the eukarya, right? The domain, so there's bacteria, eukarya, and archaea, and I'll talk about the other two in a moment. Eukarya, we're looking at organisms, whether they're single or multi-celled organisms. Primarily, it's comprised of multicellular organisms. They all have cells which contain membrane-bound organelles. A nucleus that's membranous. There's a nuclear membrane. It contains the genetic material of the cell of this organism, of the different types of tissues present within these organisms. Whether we're looking at plants or whether we're looking at animals, right? Fungi, protists, right? And I said to you that this Protista family, they believe, as far as evolutionary theory, that began as a single organism and then diversity spread out from there. Okay. Um, like I said to you there, it's a matter of that these are membrane-bound organelles. So say like the rough ER for production of proteins, smooth ER for the production of lipids, Golgi apparatus for the packaging of the proteins and lipids. It was also as well as carbohydrate synthesis. So these are membrane-bound organelles. A ribosome, protein involved in protein synthesis, not a membrane-bound organelle, but it's still present within eukaryotic cells. Mitochondria, that's also a membrane-bound organelle, production of ATP. Right, so we have these eukarya, then we have these archaea. These are the types of microorganisms that are able to live in hostile environments. So, and I'll show you some images, I believe there, like whether it's extreme salty environment or extreme type of other chemicals, or how about extreme heat, extreme salt, halophiles, thermophiles. These are archaea. Okay? Bacteria, we're looking at these microorganisms that are, we would call them prokaryotes. Prokaryotes are cells that do not contain membrane-bound organelles. And those are prokaryotic type organisms. These are bacteria, these are microorganisms. So those are the three domains. Then upon which there we have these diversity that will spread out. You'll see here we have the plants, we have the animals, the fungi, and the protists, right? And then you'll go from here as far as, all the diversity that takes place as far as within the animal kingdom, right? How about within plant kingdom, right? And seedless, and so it's pretty cool stuff, right? I think it's a nice, simple image. Let's go to this next one here, okay? And so let's see if I can a little bit bigger. Good. Okay. And so what you'll see here is that now this one shows you here at the very foundation, right, would be protists, right? So microorganisms, single-celled microorganisms, and upon which all of this diversity and evolutionary changes would occur in order to allow for, and this would, we would say then macroevolution. Microevolution would take place within certain types of species and where there can be a diversity, okay? How about like, think of in the case of, say, I'll come back to this. Think of in the case of, right here, just trying to open up a new window. Come on, guys. There we go. Okay. So let's see. I'm sorry, I just got off my train of thought. It'll come to me in just a moment. Here, let me go back to the. Oh darn! I hate that. That's okay. That's all right. Let's go back into our images and it'll come to me again. So I want to show you. Yeah. So this is another one, just another tree of life, and just being able to see that there are the different branches. Oh, okay. Now it's coming to me again. So we're looking at as far as the protists here, that those single-celled organisms, and upon which I wanted to look at, yeah, pigeons. Now, and involved in breeding and such, and selective breeding, so that we can actually, so common heritage, yet a common heritage via selective breeding can create all of this different diversity that we see just in different types of pigeons. And Darwin was very involved in this and looking at the diversity present within pigeons and had a collection of his own and such, and it's quite fascinating. And I had the opportunity as a young man, and I have a buddy now that's still involved in it, the same guy that he and I as young people would bred pigeons. We actually raced pigeons and pretty cool stuff. But take a look at this, right? Look how cool the diversity present within these birds, these simple birds, and yet they can be beautiful, really, truly. And I think it's just, now some are like, maybe that's not so beautiful, right? But it's still in its own way, it is, right? So you have to appreciate diversity, and that's, and really, and think about also just the human population, right, that we have on this world today. Can we appreciate the diversity that's present and embrace that and enjoy that instead of allowing for it to create barriers. And so we need to be the type of people who are not a part of those that create barriers, but create bridges between everyone, and know that we are all really very similar, and really have the same parts within. It's just a matter of the outward presentation, right? Our phenotype. So here we get to terms like genotype and phenotype. So genotypically, right, we have the genetic presentation present within the nuclei of our cells, right, in the chromosomes, and the genes that are present within those. Phenotypically is where we actually have this presentation. So here's the phenotype. Phenotypically, this is what's going on as far as the different types of coloration, and whether we have feathers that are going to be a little bit different in how their appearance and such, right? Here's a good example as far as, look at those feathers in comparison, right? Pretty cool stuff. That's the phenotype. That's the presentation that we actually can see, okay, of the genotype, which we're not seeing at the microscopic level, but that we know is present. So then coming back to, so here I think it's just too cool to be able to see and to look at really the diversity that's present in our world today, right? And really, we can appreciate this no matter what we believe is the origin of life. But know that as far as for the evolutionary theory, the origin of life would be that the protists, right, these single cell organisms, and that diversity over a long period of time. So with evolution, understand that the theory comprises, it really part of the main parts of the theory is that time and very long periods of time allow for change. Okay, time, in addition to change, and it really, the change takes place over long periods of time. So we're talking millions of years, not just hundreds and thousands of years. For evolution, it's millions and billions of years. That's what we're talking about as far as the origin of life. Okay, here. It keeps on coming up with that, but here we have. So this is interesting. So let me talk to you. Let me discuss a little bit with you regarding. So when you think of the different three domains, right? So again, eukarya, bacteria, archaea, right? Then we look at the animal kingdom, and then from the animal kingdom, we can look at then as far as the phylum is concerned, chordata. Okay. So chordata is one aspect of the phylum that we would look at, and it's those type of creatures that would actually have this notochord, which would be like analogous to a spinal column, and the dorsal hollow nerve cord, so also like analogous to the nervous structures of the nervous system, central nervous system in particular. So interesting how there's criteria for certain levels of structure. So really, when we think of the bear, okay, Ursus americanus, right, their phylum is chordata. The next one would be then Mammalia, and Mammalia would be the class. And so here we have, as far as for the bear, right, they would be part of their class would be, so kingdom, so domain, kingdom, phylum, class. The class would be the mammals. Now, the mammals, we have monotremes, marsupials, and placentals. So placentals would be the bear, right? They're not a marsupial like a kangaroo, okay? Here we have the giraffe, which would be a placental. Humans, right? Placentals. We carry the baby for term for 40 weeks, and then we end up having the birth of the child. Monotremes were egg layers. Okay, so spiny anteater would be a monotreme, and pretty interesting. Also, like a duck-billed platypus. A platypus would be an egg layer. And it's still a mammal. Kind of weird, folks, right? But think about this, though. But think about this: that really all mammals have eggs, so to speak. It's just a matter of that. So for the human, the female, the ovaries, right? The gonads are producing the gametes, the egg for the female, and that will be then fertilized internally, right? And then that egg will then divide and start as the zygote with the sperm and the egg, and then divide until we get to the point where, after 40 weeks, we have this little child. Awesome stuff. So mammals, that would be for class. The order, so that's why I was showing you these images here. So again, so chordata, so we're looking at, bear's not even on this image here, but yeah, carnivora is next. So the carnivora would be the order. So class, order, and so you'll see here the bear, okay? And there are different types of bear, but these are animals that will actually eat flesh, right? So we have the carnivora, and you'll see here that we, and even my little friend who I really get, so I like the raccoons, they're cute. And even if they get into my garbage, you know what, I'm okay. I like the skunks, I'm not okay with, but we have a love-hate relationship because I don't want to hurt them, but I can't stand the smells that they're just, yikes. Anyhow, carnivores, and you'll see here. So this is a, oh wow, is that a sea lion? I believe, right? Um, or not a walrus. Walrus? Elephant seal. Yeah, elephant seal. Those, if you've ever seen those elephant seals on a beach, folks, it's incredible how huge they can get. Like like a ton. I mean, it's something ridiculous. They can get close to a ton, I believe, right? It's crazy. And I do enjoy also when I'm out and about seeing my red foxes throughout my travels to going to work and such, and going to campus at night. I'll spot them, and they're just too cool. So that's carnivora. That would be the order. Then the family, again, I showed you here as far as Ursidae, and then as far as then we get to the Ursus as far as the genus is concerned. Okay, so let's go back to the PowerPoint here. So just trying to give you a little bit more of an information regarding each of these levels and looking at as far as, so we looked at then the domain, eukarya. So these are, again, eukarya are, they have the eukaryotic cells that have membrane-bound organelles with a membrane-bound nucleus with the genetic material present within. Okay? The kingdom, again, the animal kingdom, the chordata, dealing with having a notochord and a dorsal nerve cord, which would in turn be related to what's analogous to for the human as far as the spinal cord and the spinal column, right? Also, these pharyngeal slits, I showed you that it was on the image there, and a post-anal tail, so an actual tail, right? Now, for the human, we would say that as far as the chordata is concerned, right? So we have the vestigial remnants of that, they would say, as far as evolutionary terms, regarding the the coccyx, which would be the tailbone, right? So it's the extension of your sacrum. Okay, sacrum is like a triangular. Let me show you this, just so that I think you'll put an image to the term. So, okay, so here you can see as far as sacrum is concerned, this is the posterior aspect, this is the anterior aspect, and the coccyx, your tailbone. Okay, and so yeah, it's not external, it's not outside the body, but it's within. Okay, and it's an anchor point also. So these are very sacrum involved in being the foundation of the spine. So let's look at this for an image here and just see it. This is better. You'll see here as far as the spinal column, skull, right? We'll see here sacrum, coccyx at the inferior aspect of the spinal column. And then we get to, we looked at the mammals and the carnivores as far as for class and order. And so we move on. Okay, so the tree itself, right? So hierarchical, meaning that really arranged in order of rank and levels. And so we'll go from more diverse to more specific as we move up with the trees that we create. Organisms in the same genus generally share a fairly recent common ancestry, right? And this makes sense, does it not? Because again, too, we're looking at, we're looking at in the genus level, right? So domain very diverse. But as we move down the categories and such, we really do become very much more specific as far as the characteristics that would be present for each specific genus and then through the species themselves. Okay? And you'll see here as far as the term phylogeny, right? So we look at phylogenetic trees, right? Evolutionary history. This is what you need to be thinking of, that this is what really is the foundational information and thought that they're using for the creation of the trees are as a result of evolutionary history of the organisms and trying to determine really the origin of life. Okay? Now, illustrates the hypothesized evolutionary history of organisms. And that's what we said before there. Okay? And talking about, and I showed you this in the tree example, as far as the where would the origin be, and the protists. I need to put on my fan. I get up as I'm teaching. Right back. Okay. So really, again, noticing that the protists there, I wanted to show you. Let's see, I believe that I have images here. No, images here. Yeah, here we go. Protists. Okay. So as we're looking at protists and such, so we're looking at these tiny little microscopic organisms and such. And so this is what they're talking about as far as the origin of life is concerned, as far as looking at these single-celled organisms, okay, the protists. So they would believe that, that life began as protists, and then through evolutionary change, through millions of years, life was created. So that's, again, the evolutionary theory, and that's what we're looking at as far as for the phylogenetic trees and such, and looking at the common ancestor of all the species, the root of the tree, protists. The term anagenesis, okay? So gradual change, right? Evolutionary change in the lineage as the environment shifts over time, described as anagenesis. And so this is quite interesting because when you study evolutionary theory and such, and so you'll see also that they talk about not only just that development of life on the planet, but also the environmental changes that occurred throughout the changes present in the world that we know today. Right? Production of new species by anagenesis doesn't increase biodiversity, but simply the gradual transformation of one species into another. And so this is also when they talk about, again, having an origin and then having evolutionary change take place over millions of years, right? The development of one species into another and such, okay? Now, microevolution, again, we're talking about within the species. Macroevolution, we're talking about as far as changes from species to another species, that kind of thing. Anagenesis is what it would be a part of this process. And so the straight line on this phylogenetic tree, that will represent the anagenesis. Cladogenesis. So this we're talking about evolutionary change of ancestral species into two distinct species. So we're talking about, again, this evolutionary change over millions of years or time, right, can create new species and such. Each morphologically distinct, meaning that they're similar to, but there's distinctions between the different species, and know that really, like, there shouldn't be any type of ability for interspecies, like species cannot reproduce. Species can reproduce themselves, but between different species, we should not be able to have reproduction take place. Okay? And this process does increase biodiversity, right? As a result of this changes between the distinct species, there are changes, there's actually morphological changes in the structure, the anatomical structure of the different species, okay? And these branching points on the phylogenetic trees you'll see the lines and then you'll see the branches of the lines. So that branching point, those are called nodes, right? This is what's going to show the changes and the distinctions between the species and such, as far as having one species on one line and one species divert into another line for a different species, okay? So clades, a clade, right? Each branch, its branches, twigs, with all its different branches, as we've seen on the multiple images of the different trees of life. Each branch is known as a clade, okay? And node is where we have that line, that line where they'll have a different distinct line coming off and separating, branching off into two instead of just one. The node is the branching point. The actual branches themselves are the clades. Okay? Two clades that emerge from the same node are known as sister clades because they have each other's closest relatives. Sister species here you'll see emerge from the same node. We're very close to the top of the tree because that would be really at the very top, the distal portion of the tree from the roots, the distal portion, the very distal portion, that's where the species are located. So very close to, as far as in the tree itself, we would have, you see here, two species merge from the same node near the top, they'd be called sister species. So in the case of like here, look, right here. Nope, this one. You know, so as you're looking at this image here and looking at the primates, right? So the primates and the humans and such, they would say these would be like sister species. Understood? Okay. All right. Here. Okay. Let's see here. So the sequence of nodes, right? So those different branches, the branching points where we end up having the divergence of and the creation of new different branches. The sequence of the nodes, right? That spots there where the branching takes place, indicates the sequence in which clades appeared, but not length of time. You have to realize that. Although to get to that point of the divergence, yes, there's absolutely many millions of years, according to evolutionary theory, that would take place. But they're not giving you. So as you're looking at, as you're looking at this image right here, yeah. So as you're looking at this image here, and you're seeing these nodes, right? So these branches that are taking place, you're not seeing that to represent a certain length of time. It does, but it's not on our chart here itself on the tree. We're not giving a specific value of time to each of these different distinctions between the nodes and okay, and the clades. So here's a clade of African apes and hominins right here. Cool. But you'll see here that there are the gorillas, there's chimpanzees, the humans, right? And so you'll see here that there are these nodes, okay, between where the branching off would take place between them. Okay, so the horizontal spacing between the clades usually does not indicate their degree of difference or relatedness, so to speak, other than that there are similarities, and that's why they're placed within, because again, too, there's criteria for present within the taxonomy as far as the domain, the kingdom, the phylum, the class, the order, the family, and the genus, and then the specific species. So the further we get distal away from the root of the tree of life, and the closer we get distal we get as far as the species are concerned, the more similarities are present. So within the species, they all have the same characteristics. Prior to that, within the genus and the family and the order, they can share characteristics, but not have all of the 100% of the different characteristics. Okay? And these are terms also that you need to hear as far as evolutionary classifications. You'll need to know these terms, right? Monophyletic, polyphyletic, and paraphyletic. Now, you just read the terms, right? You can read the definitions, but this is a nice image here that we'll share with you as far as seeing, okay, so a monophyletic taxon includes an ancestral species and all of its descendants. So here's the ancestral, so these are the species and all of the descendants and such. Whereas you'll see here polyphyletic, right? We're looking at, okay, polyphyletic taxon includes species from different evolutionary lineages. So these again are going at the distal part, species. Paraphyletic includes an ancestral species and only some of, right? Not all of the descendants. Okay, this one's missing, but paraphyletic including some of the distinct species and descendants and such. Okay. So terminology, just you have to just keep. And really, like when you're thinking of terminology, also it really is very helpful to have an idea and have a word picture and have not word picture, but a picture image in your head that you're studying the term, you're looking at the image, you're studying the term, you're looking at the image, and then you're looking at the comparison between the terms and the images and such, and seeing, and okay, so I can get mono, poly, para, and have an idea of what's going on and what it looks like. So when questions are asked on a quiz or an exam, it'll come to mind and click in your memory. But again, too, this isn't something that just occurs after just a couple of minutes of review, but this takes quite a bit of time to put in to study in order to retain the information. And folks, my recommendation as far as when you're studying, making sure that you're not only just reading, I tell you that you should be reading the chapter at least once, going through the PowerPoint, taking notes from the PowerPoint, taking notes from the chapter, listen to the chapter being read, listen to this presentation. I record my lectures and I'll share this recording with you all, right? So very important to make sure that you are listening. Even when you're tired and you don't feel like studying, you can still listen to the information in a passive mode while you're in the car, driving to work, laying on the couch and just relaxing a bit. You say, oh, I'm just going to be passively listening to the lecture, or listen to another YouTube lecture on the same information, hearing it from a different point of view. Very important in order to, again, process and learn the information and commit it to memory. Let's see here. We'll go a few more slides. Yeah, we'll do like 2 more slides and then we'll be done for today. How's that? Okay. Yeah, let's do this. 3 more slides. So, sources of data. Okay, so any trait with a genetic basis can be used in the phylogenetic analysis, right? So phenotypic differences caused by environmental variation are excluded. Okay, so again, we talked about the phenotypic differences as far as what you actually see phenotypically. These similarities, though, between organisms, and that's as a result of environmental variation. Phenotypic similarities between organisms usually reflect their underlying genetic similarities, right? So yes, again, so the appearance of, so when we're looking at the primates and humans and such, yes, there are a lot of phenotypic similarities between us as far as organisms are concerned. And add a genotypic in our genotype, yes, we do share chromosomes with them, absolutely. But we're still, when it comes down to it, and you're looking at them in comparison to us, there's major differences, right? But there's some similarities and such. And we call similarities that result from shared ancestry as homologous characteristics, right? Homologies, okay? These are sameness, okay? Similarities. So any trait inherited from a common ancestor by 2 or more species can be described as homologous, right? So opposable thumbs, right? That would be, right, a trait that we could say as far as between primates and humans. Homologous characters may differ greatly among species, especially if their function has changed over time. Now, this is interesting. And then, like I said, we'll end with this next slide just to see the image of. So this, the stapes bone. So Malleus incus stapes. So these are in the, for your sense of hearing, right? The middle ear. You've probably heard of otitis media, right? Middle ear infection. So the middle ear, right? The stapes is one of the 3 tiniest bones in the human body. And the stapes actually covers what's called the oval window. And the oval window is the area of the inner ear which the stapes will be pushing up against and pushing fluids, which will in turn stimulate sensory receptors for your sense of hearing, that you hear what you hear. Well, in the middle ear, the tetrapod vertebrates evolved from and is homologous to the homundibula, a bone in the jaw of early fishes and such. So this is showing you like a homologous, very similar type structure present that has similar type function. Okay, let's see here as far as here. Phenotypic similarities that evolved independently in different lineages are called homoplasies, right, or homoplastic characters. These characters, these homoplasies, serve a similar function in different species. So it can be similar in structure, and yet different in function, okay? So you'll see here as far as this hymendibula present within early jawed fish in comparison to, so here we have a reptile here, and you're looking at as far as the stapes is concerned, very similar as far as in structure, and function can be different also, right? But still very similar to, hence homologous, the term being used to describe them. And again, showing you as far as evolutionary change and such, okay? And evolutionary adaptation, that's a better way to put it, evolutionary adaptation. Okay, folks, so I'm going to stop recording right now.